Good evening. Welcome to Caribbean Weather Dude YouTube channel. I'm Joey Only, sitting up here in Wells, British Columbia. I'm your mountain man out here in the hills, the Caribou Highlands, 3,953 feet above sea level. Loving life. It's peaceful out here, man. I haven't seen a car go by all day. It's like that. I mean, maybe there's been one or two. I haven't noticed them. It's quiet. Even though it's the weekend in Wells, it's quiet. This tiny, tiny little mountain town just sleeps, and we don't have too much danger or risk over here of super outbreaks. I've definitely seen a lot of storms come into the valley here and through the mountains that get rotating and could be capable of little quasi-linear rotation, little spin-up tornadoes, gustnadoes, and things. But no, the risk of tornado in general in the Caribou is pretty low. We do get them, but not like they get through certain parts of the United States where they are looking at the risk of a super outbreak next week. There's only been a couple, there's no definition, a clear definition of what makes a super outbreak, but there's 3 outbreaks that are agreed upon that are super outbreaks. Will this meet that criteria? Well, the setup's pretty good. And what's equally distressing right now is Trump's Doge has fired 1,000 people in the National Weather Service. We have radar stations right now that are being unmanned as far as I can tell. So we're going to look at some of those details and just kind of get a better picture on this attack on the Weather Service. And it's coming right at the worst possible time, right? It could leave people vulnerable during this super outbreak if a super outbreak occurs. Concerning situation. So let's look at the forecast first and all that. All right, hit like, share, subscribe. Let's go. There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry mopping this. We'll get first right to what Reed Timmer's saying ahead of time. We have multiple chances for super tornado outbreaks through the middle of March. Now is not the time to carve up the National Weather Service. We at Team Dominator have always been huge supporters of our friends at the National Weather Service. Even I cannot make a forecast without their valuable data and forecast model output. Please contact your representative in support of the National Weather Service. Remember those missed tornado warnings in Oklahoma in November due to the office being short-staffed? These problems could become more widespread with the firings. That's Dr. Reed Timmer, extreme meteorologist. He doesn't call himself doctor much publicly, but the man's an expert. And he's speaking out. Good for him. He's been speaking out about another bill in Oklahoma that limits who can and cannot storm chase. You have to have a license and this and that. I don't think we have time to talk about that tonight, but that's another one that actually there's some division on within our panel for the meteorological report. However, different topic, different time. Reed's speaking out, and good for him. Here's just some of the things Max Velocity's been saying. As of 7 hours ago, he said an enhanced risk of severe weather remains in effect for Tuesday as a very powerful negatively tilted trough will be making its way through the south-central United States. Here he is saying again, significant weather is likely on Tuesday. Numerous damaging winds, hail, strong tornadoes possible. This event has a high ceiling. Make sure you have multiple ways to receive alerts and stay weather aware. We're going to talk about exactly where this all is. As we get going, I got maps and things for you, but just bear with me. So this is an example of what Max Velocity is saying. There are at least 2 radar sites operated by National Weather Service that no longer have staffing to fix them. This means lives are in danger if we do not have the proper equipment to determine tornado warnings or severe thunderstorm warnings. Keep in mind, radar outages have been happening in the past and are usually fixed relatively quickly. Not having someone on standby will lead radar sites to potentially be down for weeks or longer. I was informed that this is not an easy job and requires proper training. This is not what we need, as we are approaching a very active, severe weather season. Lives are at stake because of the decisions being made. And before some of you comment, oh, my weather app will still work, well, guess what? Your weather app uses NOAA, National Weather Service data. Sorry to break it to you, but if one of those radar sites goes down, unless you're using a low-resolution MRMS radar, you won't be able to see what's happening. Radar sites in Illinois, Alabama, are both affected by this. That's at KILX and KMXX. If I had to guess, there are more. Please help get the word about this, he's saying. He says, my posts regarding the cuts are not political. It's about keeping you safe from the extreme weather. We all use NWS weather for daily weather information. That could affect your family. That's my greatest concern right now. And I said, though, it is political. Keep speaking out. Accept it. It's political. Keep speaking out, please. This whole setup for this low to move into the center of the states is happening because we have still abundant cold air to the north. That's very dry. We do have a low pressure system that has been affecting California, but will make its way in and become cohesive and organized. And we have this nice flow of Gulf moisture. And we can see Monday at 2 in the afternoon, we're just seeing our first storms firing up in this, and this is not the risk yet, but we do see in parts of Texas, parts of Colorado, some of these first storms popping up. And if they're isolated, hey, maybe we could see an early warning shot tornado or two the day before. I know up in Nebraska and Colorado, there's some talk about that. Oklahoma, starting to see their storms pop up overnight. Now watch this, boom. And, we're going to look at a number of different things here to get the best picture I can for you. Without using a whole bunch of different apps. I like using Windy. You can use Windy yourself. You can download it. Everyone has access to it. So you can see this long line through Oklahoma, first of all, from Wichita, Kansas, all the way down to San Angelo, Texas, more or less. Storms popping up in along that line. Big, strong band through the night, overnight, midnight. Do we see midnight tornadoes? I don't know. You're going to want to watch your American forecasters at this point. I'm not here to really give you the full forecast. I mean, if you live in these places, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, where some of the worst of it may happen on Tuesday as these storms pass on through and start developing. If you live in those areas, I'm not the guy you want to be watching. I'm up here in British Columbia. But for my British Columbia viewers, I hope to give you a little bit of a picture of what they're talking about here because you trust me and you watch me every day. And thank you for that. Hit like, share, subscribe if you're new to the channel. There's always a wide range of things on the Joey Only Caribou Weather Dude channel. I tend to talk about weather a lot, especially once we get into active weather season. Right now, it's the middle of winter. I'm sitting around a lot, not have a lot going on. And so I'm finding myself to be very much all over the place with what my content is right now. But as we get into the storm season and get into the mountain season, when I'm outside a lot more and more, you're going to see a lot more of me just being outside. So there's your line moving through on Tuesday. Already by midnight, it's probably just touching the edge of Georgia, moving through Alabama, through northwest side of Florida, on and on. So we're going to back up here and just look at a couple different examples on this map. As we zoom in on this nasty guy here, you can see a strong flow up from the Gulf. On the backside of this, the cold air coming down, you could see some snow through Colorado all the way up towards the Canadian border, right? Rain on the front side, thunderstorms in there, and you can see this dry air, cold air in the backside cycling into that mid-latitude cyclone. Going to be a real beast of a, classic spring setup, really. They always talk about this kind of spring setup, the warm Gulf moisture. Well, how warm is it? If we're sitting at Tuesday at 3 a.m, just see the difference in temperature there alone, right? Looking at Texas, 18 degrees at 3 a.m. Oh, wow. It's starting to give you an example how much humidity is there, how much moisture is there, how much warmth is there. And in behind that, what's feeding the backside of the storm coming down in behind is this -8 Celsius. Very dry, very dry. If we look at the humidex value, look at that dry line. This is really telling. Look how dry the air is on the one side, 26%, down through Texas, 17%, desert-like dry, very, very dry, very, very dry. And then you have very cold air coming in the backside of it, very moist air, 97%, just saturated at 3 a.m. So before these storms move into that Louisiana and Arkansas area and into Alabama, Mississippi, already before it makes that run through there, you can just see at Tuesday at 3 a.m. how the ingredients are there. Convective available potential energy already in Texas. Early Tuesday morning, you're talking 1,000 joules per kilogram. That's not exceedingly high, but look at the time of day it is, friends. That's the telling tale here, right? And when you start looking where that Cape energy is going, convective available potential energy, what is that? That's how explosive is the atmosphere. A point at Tuesday afternoon where that Cape kind of evaporates, and that's probably when we're about to see our storms literally explode, just take right off, become so tall and massive. So back to, now that we've looked at just an example of that high convective available potential energy that's moving up through from the Gulf at that time, and just seeing now how that line of storms comes through in the backside. So widespread problem here, right? It's, we got the severe outbreak for tornadoes, but at the backside too, we have really heavy precip. Could see some really strong thunderstorms in other places. Maybe not like the ones that we're looking at through Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, maybe parts of Tennessee and Alabama, maybe a little bit of southwest Florida, but mostly, especially, I think we're looking at this sort of area right here when this guy starts moving on through. We're looking at Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, that kind of corridor here on the south end of this line where I think we're going to really see the strongest storms most likely erupt. But anywhere up this line, I would think that there's a risk that strong potential tornadoes could happen. But look at those colors right there that we're seeing now. That is ridiculously strong storms. That humidity, that moisture content, just exploding, just exploding, just exploding. This lightning, this rain, this precipitation, just exploding. I'm sure you'll see large hail because of the dryness in behind. It's going to push those clouds up to 40, 50,000 feet maybe, you know, we're talking exploding tall supercells with large anvil structures, dropping tornadoes in the background. It's coming starting, morning time, but, we're looking at, of course, as tornadoes go, as the heat of the day gets on, and, what are we talking about for heat of the day? So if we just stop at 14 at 2 p.m., you can see down that south side of Texas, all along the Gulf coast, we're into the 20s, right? Some of that being drawn up, 20-degree air being drawn up, and that's the differential between that 20-degree air, and then look at the center of this low, 17 degrees, 17 degrees, 17 degrees. Well, how far do you have to go from Kansas to Nebraska to get from 16 degrees to 0? Not very far, and that's the explosive energy. That's where it's created from, right? All those things we just talked about, the dry air, the cool, that's cool. Then we have the moist, the warm, we have the low, and might be quite windy in some places, even that are not in the storm, like in the backside of this. We kind of seen that through southern Manitoba the other day, where it snowed pretty good in northern Manitoba, but the south side of Manitoba got very, very little of that, and it just got really, really pounding winds, right? If we go up in the altitudes, here we are at 3,000 feet. This is the wind at 3,000 feet. 117 kilometers, 112 kilometers. Oh boy, look at that wind shear. You have all this wind going this way, but then you have this stuff going another way. Well, we'll keep going up in the height, and we'll try to find what do we also see for wind shear here. What also changes as we get up? Oh man, look at how much stronger these winds are getting. 155 kilometers at height. It's not too hard to imagine when you look at this how a storm may get its rotation. And look at this, though. When you get up to 7,000 meters, getting up to, look at the jet stream when you got 200 kilometer hour winds, and they're taking a bit of a different angle than these ones were. You can see these areas where as this moves through, you can start to see where they might line up to be perfect for cyclogenesis. At the upper levels, the wind's just going straight across. So juxtapose that from the winds that we saw coming up from the south earlier on, and now you're starting to really see all the mechanics that are there to make this a really incredible event, a really credible, damaging, life-altering, life-threatening event through the United States. And I'm not your forecaster. I'm here to talk about a number of things in relation to this. The cuts at National Weather Service. These are all red states that are getting destroyed by this line of thunderstorms. Could be really, really bad. So what is a super outbreak? As I said earlier, there's not a clear definition on what a super tornado outbreak is. But there's 3 agreed upon events that everyone would say, yes, that's a super outbreak. And I got to get through this faster. My kids are over there with Uncle Josh right now. They like to hang out with him. So I was like, well, I got 25 minutes. I better shoot a video. And now I'm just talking because I'm really amazed at the storm we're looking at here. Okay, so that's the story. That's the story you see. And look at the story on the backside. That's not all. It's like we're going to have strong precipitation all through the Great Lakes region, heavy rain up the Adirondacks and Appalachians, heavy snow through Ontario, the backside, down through, looks like, look where that storm comes centered in behind there. And you can see Wisconsin and maybe Chicago is going to get slammed by some of that storm, changing from heavy rain to heavy snow. So you might even see a freeze up in behind that as these colder temperatures in behind descend in and maybe cause a bit of a freeze up as well, right? So really, really interesting and crazy weather outbreak that's going to affect everyone down in these southern states, everyone through the northern plains, everyone through Ontario, Quebec. It's going to make its way into the Maritimes, and we're going to see freezing rain in places. We're going to see heavy snow. And yeah, so this is a real hefty story. It's like the biggest story of the week. One's a 1974 super outbreak that had 7 EF5 tornadoes, okay? 7. 23 EF4 tornadoes. 35 EF3 tornadoes. 34 EF2 tornadoes. Crazy outbreak. And there's lots of videos on YouTube all about that, about the tornado, the F5 in Xenia, Ohio. You can look at Weatherbox, one of my favorite channels. They got a great one on it. Super outbreak in 2011, 4 EF5s, 11 EF4s, 22 EF3s. We could be looking at something like this. And there's also the tornado outbreak in 1917 that had 1 EF5, 14 EF4s, 17 EF3s, 28 EF2s. So strong. There's a lot of other tornado outbreaks that we have on the docket that, the tornado outbreak in 1992, does it count as a super outbreak? Some people have said yes. There's 170 tornadoes. We got a couple examples like that, where there's a lot of tornadoes, and sometimes people include them and say, no, it's really about how many EF5s you get and how many EF4s. If you have a lot of them, that's what makes the difference between a super outbreak. So, that's a matter of weather discussion. There's a lot of debate on that based on these numbers. Like, well, hey, there's 402 in this May 2019. But yeah, most of them were small, weak tornadoes. So everyone agrees that these three events are super outbreaks. And, the big one being 1974. This is the one that, every weather nerd knows about this. Even as a little kid, I'd be looking at the slideshows in the library on tornadoes, ever since Wizard of Oz, I was interested in tornadoes. Before I was like getting struck by lightning as a kid, I'm excited by tornadoes. But you see these tornadoes, widespread devastation. You can find out all about this all over the internet. You can look it up. April 2nd, 1974. It's the big one. There's all kinds of footage. And it was a really important outbreak because Dr. Fujita really used this one to he followed. And in fact, this map here was probably made by him, but for certain, this map was made by Dr. Fujita himself, who the Fujita scale is named after. So he went to all these different tornadoes and analyzed the damage paths, and people thought he was crazy because here comes this Japanese man showing up to a tornado zone and everyone's mourning and crying, and he's asking people very detailed questions how long, what was this doing, what was the behavior of that, where was this before it landed here, and drawing detailed maps of all the different areas. And he went on this big investigative trip, and through that, the Fujita scale became what we now know as how we measure the strength of a tornado through its damage. There's a lot of discussion on, does the Fujita scale need to be updated, because now we have better ways of tracking how strong are the winds in that. And we still say, well, if it's just out in the middle of a field, it could still be an F1 because it only hit some grain. We need it to wreck a strong, well-built structure. And all that stuff, this is one of the most important tornado outbreaks in history. Really important. Hopefully we don't have an event that's this insane, this severe, but we could be talking about an outbreak that's at least in terms of numbers of tornadoes could be quite significant. That's what we're looking at Tuesday. Be ready to watch all your favorite YouTubers who storm chase. But here's the problem. Huge layoffs have hit the NOAA this week. They forecast weather, hurricanes. National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration began firing staff on Thursday because of DOGE. This includes staff at the Weather Service, could impact national weather forecasting used by many people in industries. It wasn't immediately clear how many people were fired. I've heard 1,000. Definitely heard a whole bunch of people who only had 1 year on the job were just gone. Some fired people were given less than 2 hours to leave the office. According to people who asked to be anonymous, the agency joins many others across federal government to have recent cuts. NPR has seen copies of the termination letter for NOAA employees, all of whom were probationary period with the agency. The status is applied because they had to either joined NOAA recently or had been promoted. The letter informed the employees they were not fit for continued employment because of your ability, knowledge, and/or skills, and do not fit the agency's current needs. Impact of cuts to NOAA staff. The impacts, say experts and agency employees who spoke on the condition of anonymity, out of fear of reprisal. My God, this is bad. The agency has around 12,000 employees that work on a broad range of topics, from conditions in the upper atmosphere to fish in the depths of the ocean. They make the country's weather forecasts, hurricanes forecasts, manage oceanic fisheries, protect coastal resources, create updates of maritime maps critical to global shipping, and they share knowledge with the Canadian forecasting agencies, Environment Canada, And that's how we develop our weather models, because we have a global system of information. It's really important. We rely on NOAA. They rely on us. Together, the world of science is trying to get it right. We're trying to get the best possible understanding on what's going on out there and what could happen and how to keep people safe. And it saves money. It saves, the industry makes money based on it. Look at Mark on our own channel. He forecasts for energy. He forecasts for high water. He forecasts for solar energy. He forecasts, and they trade energy on the markets based on things that he's saying. It's really important. Access to good data is making his company money. And the fact that he's a good meteorologist to boot. Breaking up the funding or reducing NOAA's highly integral workforce will severely impact our nation's economy, 5 of NOAA's former administrators said in an open letter to Congress. It'll make it more difficult to receive weather forecasts. Timothy Gallaudet, a former Navy officer and oceanographer who served as acting administrator of NOAA during the first Trump administration, warned that the weakening of NOAA could have national security and economic impacts that are really seemingly contradicting the administration's priorities. They could disrupt weather operations, marine shipping safety, military activities. NOAA houses and supports cutting-edge climate science research. This is the goal of Project 2025, is to gut all climate change-related research in America. We all earned our position, says one former employee. They asked not to be named because of concerns about jeopardizing future employment opportunities, the fear of reprisals. It's an absolute gutting of our young talent, they say. How can this affect NOAA? Right? That data is fed into the models that create weather forecasts, which are used daily by millions of Americans, as well as a vast number of industries, including shipping and aviation. These models need active care and monitoring by scientists. AI alone cannot fix it. Even a small reduction in the amount or quality of data coming in can impact weather prediction accuracy. NOAA scientists monitor global climate patterns, have major impacts on the U.S. They monitor the El Nino, the La Nina, which can determine whether parts of the country see droughts or floods. The agency's long-running rainfall records are used by engineers around the country who design roads and bridges. The agency operates the Office of Marine Aviation Operations. An employee at NOAA who asked not to be named for fear of retribution said cuts would have a direct impact on the capabilities of the office to carry out its crucial coastal mapping duties. The U.S. currently boasts some of the most sustainable oceanic fisheries in the world, but they rely on NOAA for that. It will take years to understand the full scope of the impacts of these cuts, says Rick Spinrad, NOAA administrator during the Biden administration. It's going to take decades to get back the intellectual capital. And here says Daniel L. Swain, Ph.D., Dr. Daniel Swain, climate scientist. The mass firing of new hires and recently promoted senior staff with the NOAA, including mission-critical and life-saving roles at the National Weather Service, is profoundly alarming. It appears that NOAA staff fired today, what they fired includes meteorologists, data and computer scientists responsible for maintaining and upgrading weather predictive models, and technicians responsible for maintaining the nation's weather instrumentation network, among many others. Housed within NOAA, the U.S. National Weather Service is a truly world-class meteorological predictive service, perhaps singularly so. Its costs of operation is $3 to $4 per year per taxpayer, equivalent to a single cup of coffee, and yields a truly remarkable return on investment, at least 10 to 1, maybe 100 to 1, depending on methods of estimation. NOAA and National Weather Service collectively offer tens of hundreds of billions of dollars each year in net economic benefit through a combination of averted losses and efficiencies gained. More importantly, the National Weather Service, which itself, supported by auxiliary services and entities, saves countless lives by continuously issuing high-quality weather forecasts and extreme weather warnings. There have been multiple cases just in the past several years where the NWS predictions and real-time emergency warnings saved hundreds and thousands of lives in some cases in just a single event. Despite widespread discussions on the contrary, the fact of the matter is that the private sector, as it presently exists, simply cannot quickly spin up to fill any void left by substantial dismissing of NOAA and or the National Weather Service. I work extensively with weather and climate scientists who work in the private sector, all of whom do good and important work that I respect. Yet even in the private sector, there is near unanimous agreement that NOAA and NWS are indispensable. In fact, although it's not widely known outside of weather and climate science circles, most or all the private weather companies in the United States, including the weather forecasts you see on TV news or your favorite weather apps, are built directly atop the backbone of taxpayer-funded instrumentation, data assimilation, predictive modeling, and forecasting services done by NOAA and NWS. They could simply not exist at all if NOAA doesn't function as it presently does. Further, even a temporary or partial interruption in NOAA National Weather Service's 24/7, 365 life-saving services, which are often used in an hour-by-hour, even minute-by-minute context during extreme weather events and other emergencies, would be devastating. The National Weather Service is a critical public utility and would be extremely difficult to rebuild if it's torn down. This, in short, is not an acceptable setting to which to move fast and break things. I want to be clear, if there were large staffing reductions at NOAA and NWS, as it appears is now indeed underway, with credible reports of how much larger further cuts are on the horizon, there will be people who die in extreme weather events and weather-related disasters who will not have died otherwise. The American economy will suffer. The now confirmed and rumored additional cuts to come at NOAA and NWS are spectacularly short-sighted and ultimately will deal a major self-inflicted boon to the public safety of Americans and resiliency of the American economy to weather and climate-related disasters. So I guess we'll find out on Tuesday what's going to happen with the first such thing. You know, what does a reduction of 1,000 people going to mean when a super outbreak's going on and we have multiple tornadoes on the ground in multiple states and multiple counties, multiple events simultaneously happening? How fast can we react to that? It's going to be really interesting how will modeling suffer. It's not interesting, it's horrifying. And we rely on those models here in this channel. You know, all the forecast models we look at partly exist because of data from NOAA and National Weather Service. You can't just replace it with AI. If you think you can replace me with AI, go right ahead. Go ask your Grok what the weather's going to be. Otherwise, keep coming back here. Hit like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. We'll have BC weather for you tomorrow. I hope. There's just not a whole lot going on unless you're in northern BC right now. So enjoy the down weather this weekend. A little bit of precip moving through the Caribou tonight, sure. But other than that, no, it's still fairly dry in southern BC for the next little bit. Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye now.